All right, guys, welcome back. August 2026 is one of the most energetically significant months in recent memory. And I don't say that lightly. In a single month, we have the Lionsgate portal opening, which peaks on August 8th, and closing. And then, immediately 4 days later, a solar eclipse in Leo. And then on August 28th, we have a lunar eclipse in Pisces. 2 eclipses in 1 month, both inside or immediately following the Lionsgate window, with Saturn, Neptune, Pluto, and the nodes all in retrograde simultaneously, turning everything inward. All right, so today I want to talk about what that actually means. And not the hype version, not the fear version, but the honest version. What these events are, what they're doing in the collective field, and what they're specifically asking of people who are sensitive to energy. Because if you've been feeling any of this already, the intensity, the emotional weight, the sense that something big is being asked of you, well, I feel you deserve to understand what you're actually moving through. So let's get into it. First, let's start with the Lionsgate, because I think it's one of the most misunderstood events in spiritual circles. Every year, between approximately July 26th and August 12th, with the peak energy on August 8th, which is the 8th day of the 8th month, the Earth, the Sun in Leo, and the star Sirius align in a specific configuration. Sirius is the brightest star visible from Earth. It is 25 times more luminous than even our sun. And for the ancient Egyptians, one of the most spiritually sophisticated civilizations in recorded human history, Sirius was not just a star. It was the spiritual sun, the source of divine wisdom, the star whose heliacal rising, whose first appearance above the horizon before sunrise, marked their sacred new year. They built their temples oriented towards Sirius. They calibrated their entire spiritual calendar around her rising. The Nile floods, which brought life to the desert, correlated with Sirius's return to the sky. She is associated with the goddess Saptet, Isis in some traditions, the keeper of soul codes and cosmic intelligence. When modern astrologers and spiritual teachers talk about the Lionsgate portal, what they're pointing at is this: the annual window when Sirius rises alongside the Leo sun, when the veil between the physical and non-physical world is thinner, when the transmission between the higher realms and the earth is more available than it is most of the year. And this is not a metaphor. This is an actual astronomical event that ancient cultures tracked with extraordinary precision. And 2026 is not a normal Lionsgate year. We just moved through the Barbo basket in late July, one of the rarest planetary alignments in the past century, marking the end of a global crisis cycle and the opening of a reconstruction era. The buck moon in Aquarius landed on the same day as the Sun-Jupiter Cazimi, one of the luckiest transit days of the year. And now the Lionsgate is opening inside that already amplified field. The numerology of 8/8/2026, where 2026 reduces to 10, which reduces to 1, creates what numerologists are calling a 888 resonance with a new beginning signature. 8 is the number of infinity, of cycles, of power moving through the spiritual and material realms. 3 8s together is unusual. All of this is to say, the Lionsgate in 2026 is not ordinary. Whatever you've been working on, whatever you've been building internally, whatever has been integrating through the first half of this year, this portal is amplifying all of it. So what does it actually do? I want to be specific about what the Lionsgate is energetically doing, because I think a lot of the content out there gets a little bit vague in this area. The Lionsgate is primarily a transmission window, and what that means is that certain frequencies, higher dimensional information, soul level codes, spiritual intelligence that normally requires significant effort to access, all become more available during this period. Think of it like a satellite dish. Most of the time the signal is there, but you have to work to receive it clearly. During the Lion's Gate, that dish is totally aligned and the signal is strong and the static drops. For people who work with channeling, intuitive gifts, the Akashic records, or any form of spiritual communication, this window tends to produce clearer, stronger, more specific transmissions than usual. Things come through with unusual precision. You see a lot of things out there about this being a huge manifestation window. Well, this is why. For people who don't identify as having specific spiritual gifts, this window tends to produce unusual clarity, maybe dreams that feel significant, thoughts that feel like they're coming from somewhere outside of their ordinary mind, or a sense of knowing something that you don't know how you know. For empaths and highly sensitive people specifically, and this is important, the amplification affects everything, not just the spiritual receiving, but the energetic absorbing. What you pick up from the collective field during this window is also amplified, which means discernment becomes even more essential. Knowing what's yours versus what you're absorbing becomes even more critical. And I'll talk about that. There's a second half of this video because this message was really long. In the next video, I'll dive into that a little bit deeper. For now, just understand, the Lion's Gate amplifies your frequency in both directions. What you receive, what you absorb, and what you send out. The other thing the Lion's Gate does is accelerate. Whatever has been building, decisions you've been approaching, chapters that have been completing, new directions that have been forming, the portal tends to move these things forward faster than they would have moved on their own timeline. And this is not always comfortable, let's be real. Acceleration rarely is, but it is purposeful. The Lion's Gate peaks inside Leo season, and that pairing is not coincidental. Leo is the sign of the heart, of sovereignty, of creative self-expression, leadership, and the courage to be fully seen. The Leo sun asks, are you living from the authentic center of who you are, or are you living from a performance of who you think you should be? And for empaths, that question has particular weight, because so much of an empath's life can be organized around the perceptions and needs of other people. Reading the room, adjusting the self, making sure everyone is okay before checking whether you are. The Leo sun and the Lion's Gate it holds is specifically asking you to locate the self underneath all of that adjustment. And then, on August 12th, 4 days after the Lion's Gate peak, a solar eclipse in Leo. And not just a solar eclipse, but a solar eclipse on a new moon. A new moon plants a seed. A solar eclipse plants a seed and then does everything necessary to clear the ground around it, removing what doesn't belong, accelerating everything, initiating beginnings that wouldn't have happened without the disruption. A solar eclipse in Leo is asking very directly, who are you when you're not performing? Who are you when there's no audience? What does your creative fire actually want to build? What chapter is ending to make room for the one that's trying to begin? The eclipse also carries the energy of things that happen suddenly. Shifts in circumstance that couldn't have been predicted. Information that arrives and changes your understanding of something. Relationships or situations that reach a clear ending point even if the timing wasn't planned. Eclipse energy doesn't wait. It moves when it's ready, regardless of whether you feel prepared. The most useful thing you can do with it is stay present, stay honest, and trust that what's being cleared is making room for something that actually belongs in your life. So here's what makes August 2026 especially significant. We have 2 eclipses in 1 month. We have the solar eclipse on the new moon in Leo on August 12th, and the lunar eclipse on a full moon in Pisces on August 28th. When eclipses come in pairs like this, and they often do, because eclipse seasons produce 2 or 3 eclipses within a few weeks, they create what's called an eclipse corridor, a concentrated window of accelerated change and completion. The Leo-Pisces axis that these eclipses are activating tells a specific story. Leo is individual sovereignty, creative fire, the self in its fullest expression. Pisces is disillusion, compassion, surrender, the self merging back into the whole. These are not opposing energies. They are complementary ones. The full arc of the self, from the individual finding their unique expression to the individual releasing that expression back into the flow of something larger. The solar eclipse in Leo asks, who are you? Specifically, what are you here to express? The lunar eclipse in Pisces 16 days later asks, what do you need to release in order to move forward? What have you been carrying that was never meant to be permanent? And together, they form a complete invitation. Claim yourself, then release what no longer belongs. I also want to say something about the Sun-Uranus square and Mercury-Uranus square that are happening on August 28 alongside that lunar eclipse in the full moon. Uranus is the great disruptor, the planet of sudden change, unexpected shifts, liberation through disruption. When Uranus squares both the Sun and Mercury on the same day as a lunar eclipse, the release process can feel abrupt. Things may end quickly. Information may arrive suddenly. The shift may not come with a very long runway. And this is not punishment. This is the field moving efficiently. What needs to be released, being released. What needs to be seen, being shown. Trust it, even when it's disorienting. And I also want to spend a moment on the broader energetic backdrop of August because that also really matters. Saturn, Neptune, Pluto, and the nodes are all retrograde this month. That's a lot of outer planet energy turning inward simultaneously. We have Saturn retrograde. The structures and commitments in your life are being reviewed. What's built on something real versus what's maintained out of habit or fear. Neptune retrograde. The illusions are dissolving. The places where you've been seeing what you wanted to see rather than what's actually there are becoming harder to maintain. And this can feel disorienting, but it's the clarity that follows when the fog lifts. Then we have Pluto retrograde, all about power dynamics, transformation, the underworld material that's been building. It's all being turned inward for examination rather than outward for action. What this means collectively is that August is an inward month despite how much is happening externally. The events, we have the eclipses, the Lionsgate portal, the major transits, they're not asking you to go out and conquer something. They're asking you to go within, to do the work that only you can do in the privacy of your own becoming. For empaths who are wired to process through other people and the collective field, this inward pull is worth honoring deliberately. Build in more solitude than usual, more time without input, more space between what you receive and how you respond. The field is loud this month. You will need pockets of quiet to hear yourself inside of it. All right, now let me bring this together and be direct about what August 2026 is asking specifically. It's asking you to step more fully into what you actually are, into who you actually are. Not the performance of who you think you should be, not the version of yourself that was shaped by what other people needed you to be, but the genuine center of your own sovereign self. That's the Lionsgate invitation. That's what Leo season is holding. That's what the solar eclipse in Leo is accelerating. And simultaneously, it's asking you to release what you've been carrying that was never meant to be permanent for you. The grief that's been held past its season. The loyalty that's keeping you in something that's already complete. the identity built around someone else's needs that was always a temporary house, not a permanent home. That's the lunar eclipse in Pisces asking. That's what Chiron retrograde is pointing at. That's what Neptune dissolving illusions is trying to show you. These two things together, claiming the self, releasing what isn't the self, are the same movement from different angles. You can't fully claim who you are while you're still carrying what you are not. And you can't fully release what you're not until you know clearly enough who you are to let go without losing yourself in the process. August is offering both at once, and that's why it's intense. That's why it's significant. That's why, if you're feeling it in your body and your field already, you're not imagining it. You're in the middle of something real, and the most important thing you can do is stay present inside of it. Drop a comment and tell me what August has been bringing up for you. I read everything, and if you want to go deeper into how to navigate through this, especially for empaths, the second video, which I'll drop in a couple days, is exactly that. All right. Thank you so much for listening. I greatly appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one.